I have no clue how the Eastern Conference is gonna look. Really. The NBA is highlighted by its immense star power, scoring savants, statistical juggernauts, and complete freaks of nature. But despite the star power circulating around the league, for as long as I can remember, the Eastern Conference has always been a step behind. Top-end talent and quality of depth and all of those things, the West have just always seemed to have the Eastern Conference's number. And I can't really blame the East. There's just been stretches of time where the West was just loaded with talent. The Eastern Conference has tendencies to just be ruled over by one team or one player for stretches of time. The most recent example of this being LeBron for an 8-year stretch, but after he packed his bags up and went to LA, the Eastern Conference has kind of been flailing and up for grabs. There hasn't been a repeat conference winner since LeBron. Don't get me wrong though, that doesn't mean the East lacks talent. The Pacers just pulled off one of the greatest finals runs we've seen, and the Boston Celtics look like a juggernaut on their way to their 18th NBA ring. Both of these teams have the youth and the talent to run the East just like their predecessors LeBron had. They both look like incredible candidates to headline the Eastern Conference for years to come. Until their best players tore their Achilles, at least. The East is as open as ever right now, with the two top teams out of commission for at least this season and potentially damaged longer. There is literally no direction of the Eastern Conference. But again, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of talent. The East has a plethora of sneaky young teams that can make major leaps into the bright lights of the NBA playoffs. So I'll try my best to break things down and crack the code of the weirdest conference in the NBA. Alright, first I gotta mention the injured teams. The victims of the Achilles monster. I don't expect much from the Pacers or the Celtics this year. To be fair, they are well-coached teams that still have talent outside of the stars they lost, but they're not making any noise. Of the two teams though, I expect the Celtics to be better. They have a plethora of talented young players that could very easily enter the level of play needed to surprise some people. I can see Anthony Simons having a really good year. Peyton Pritchard could easily erupt into a sub 20 point per game score. Jaylen Brown could easily right the ship and be the #1 option for them. I can see them playing in contention with the East. What I don't see is the Pacers doing that. Hallie is already a big loss for them, like huge. He's literally the engine of their offense. He is their identity. But even beyond that, Miles Turner shocking the world and signing with the Bucks instead of the Pacers is another big piece that's not on their team anymore. They still have talent. Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard could take leaps into very good players, but with the losses that they have, I mean, this has to be a gap year for the Pacers. Regardless though, I see them as a play-in team. Boston and Indiana moving down opens up some playoff spots for other teams looking to wiggle their way in. Milwaukee was already in, but Dame getting hurt kind of shot their talent down from a sure playoff lock to more of a fringe one. Celtics and Pacers being injured kind of softened the blow of his loss, and even though Miles Turner isn't an upgrade as a second option at all, Giannis is a top 3 player in the world, and he will always drag whatever roster around him to a playoff berth. The Pistons are young and hungry, fresh off a hard-fought series against the Knicks, who, spoiler alert, look to be a top team in the East this season. Cade Cunningham is in his early 20s and isn't going away anytime soon. I have no doubt that he'll easily lead the Pistons to a playoff berth. Unfortunately, the Pistons did nothing this offseason, not a single significant move. They lost Dennis the Menace and Malik Beasley, and they added nothing else at all. To be fair, they do get Jaden Ivey back from injury and maybe takes a jump with Cade, and that kind of stabilizes the losses, but come on now. The Pistons are not going to be bad at all. But when you look at the fact that they lost more talent than they gained, I don't see that major ascension into the next tier happening. If you haven't guessed it yet, the two teams that I mentioned are ones who I think are going to decline from their positions last year. Those are the ones who I don't think will benefit from Indiana and Boston being hampered, but more so saved by it. They may not fall in the rankings because Boston and Indiana aren't as good as they could be, but they will still be worse than the year prior. But unlike the Bucks, who I think are in a decline, I think the 76ers are on the rise, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. The Sixers are filthy rich with talent. Ugh. MVP Joel Embiid, young star Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, who looks to be unstoppable before he got injured, and VJ Edgecombe. They have 4 potential star players who are just chilling on their roster. One of them already MVP caliber, and they got Paul George too, I guess. I don't know. With Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid already being star level and Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe untapped potential, the 76ers are too good to overlook this season. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if within a year or two, they're championship contenders. But again, they're not the only team in the Eastern Conference who's on the up and up. And this next one might be a little shocking. Listen. I don't like Trae Young at all, all right? I'm a Knicks fan and all, but the Hawks, they've been put into pieces of a really good team. If you were to grab a textbook and look at the perfect center to play next to Trae Young, a picture of Kristaps Porzingis would pop up. 7'3", probably one of the best lob threats in the league, the best pick and pop center in the league, and a good enough defensive anchor. Literally the only plus attributes he has is his lob threat and his pick and pop ability. And he's the best in the league at it. You can't ask anything better for Trae Young. Dyson Daniels already won a Defensive Player of the Year and he could take further strides. Jalen Johnson is coming back from injury. They added a 3-point sniper in Luke Kennard and a top end 3-and-D wing in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, oh my God, they look so good. Honestly, I might make a whole video on them, but their lineup is built perfectly around Trae Young, and with 2 less obstacles, I can see them potentially getting home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. But despite how good of an offseason they had, they're not contenders just yet. The Knicks, Cavs, and Magic. Those are the 3 real teams that have a shot at the throne. Not really the Magic, but okay, I don't want to shoo away the Magic right off the bat. That seems kind of rude and premature, but they were the 7th seed last year. The Magic made major improvements, don't get it twisted. The addition of Desmond Bane would be wondrous for an offense who couldn't hit a 3 to save your life. Apollo Banchero jump into the next tier of stardom is honestly likely at this point. I just don't think they measure up to the other 2. I'm not saying they won't take advantage of the Celtics and the Pacers not being there, and honestly I think they probably would get home court advantage in the first round. But to be honest, there's only 2 championship contenders in the Eastern Conference. Okay. People don't seem to be talking about the Cavs a lot, which is weird because they won like 65 games last year. Now, to be fair, the Cavs got limb blasted by Tyrese Halliburton and lost Ty Jerome in the offseason, but they were the 1 seed last season and looked incredible for most of the year. And honestly, their only competition is the Knicks at this point. So why aren't they being talked about more? If the Cavaliers don't make it to the conference finals, I'd be shocked. With the Celtics and the Pacers not having their players, as I've mentioned so much, as of late September, the Cavaliers look to have a cakewalk to the conference finals. They're still one of the deeper teams in the league. They still have Donovan Mitchell. There's a really good chance Evan Mobley gets even better as a player, especially offensively. But there's only one team that stands in their way. That's the Knicks. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not biased, and I'm just say I think the Knicks are going to be the 1 seed. But like I've said before, I think it's a 2-horse race between the Cavaliers and the Knicks team, who's added so much talent to this roster. One of the biggest things that went against the Knicks is that their depth was so horrible that the Pacers just ran laps around them. And with the addition of Jordan Clarkson, Malcolm Brogdon, Gershon Yabusele, their bench unit says went from one of the worst in the league to one of the best. And there's no doubt that they're more talented than they were last year. What is a doubt is the head coaching position. Say what you want about Tom Thibodeau, say that he plays his starters too much or that his teams always have a low ceiling, but you know that with a talented roster, Tom Thibodeau would get at least 50 wins. We know that that's a guarantee. We know Mike Brown is a good coach, but we don't know if the ceiling that he adds to the Knicks justifies removing the stability that is Tom Thibodeau. And I think that'd be a really interesting question to ask ourselves when playoff time comes around. Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum getting injured sucks, dude. Because unlike stretches in the past, the Eastern Conference looked like it was going to be once again chock full of talent. It was a 4-horse race between some of the best teams in the league. But because of some missteps and really unfortunate timing, the ground looks to be wide open. And I think it falls in New York.